Before we begin, thank you very much to Rich L for joining the Patreon campaign over at patreon.com/TJOmega. Thank you very much for helping me out. And thank you to everyone who helps me out. It literally is the reason I can keep going and literally the reason the channel is still alive. So thank you to everyone who can spare a little bit to help me. And if you can't, perfectly fine too. Hit the like button before you leave the video. That's all I will ask of you. Or subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Alright. I did my Beast Wars vehicle mode video and wow, did not expect the response it got. But it did raise a lot of questions and it did raise a lot of suggestions about the type of vehicles that I chose and alternates that I chose. And it got me to thinking about the different types of vehicles that we have never seen in Transformers. So imagine this, that we've been going with Transformers for almost 40 years now, that there are, thousands of Transformers out there of different characters and different vehicle types, and there's still things that have not been touched. It's fascinating to me, and there's always reasons for it, but I figure let's do a quick list, not a top 10 or anything, but just a list of vehicles that have never been a Transformer before and kind of see what they would be or why they don't exist. So we'll start with the trench digger that we featured at the end of that video. Again, it looks like it suits the personality of Inferno perfectly, as well as the ability to dig as Inferno was capable of doing. So this is obviously some kind of manic Constructicon. I almost feel like this is like a rogue Constructicon waiting to happen. Like, no. You're too out there for us. You're too out there for us. We could have Devastator with a massive chainsaw weapon, but this guy is just a little bit much. Let's just push him. Let's push him off to the side. We'll pretend he's not part of us. We are not associated. If the only reason this thing doesn't exist as a Transformer yet, it's because that big chainsaw would be so hard to work into engineering. We have had trench diggers in the past. I will say that right off the bat. Cybertron Metroplex, Armada Buzzsaw, those count, but never this type, never this style. And yeah, it's an awesome looking vehicle. I'm surprised it doesn't exist. So, well, who else? So that's something we've already covered. One of the vehicles that everyone suggested for Silverbolt in that video was this particular flying car, which actually is capable of transforming from flight to land vehicle. I mean, for a Transformer, that's awesome. Now, more correctly, it's something closer to a mask vehicle, which is also really cool in and of itself that it actually works. The trick is, this is a one-off prototype that is still being perfected. So the specific, and it's not really that famous of a prototype yet. So something of a Transformer out of this would require a very specific license, and it would have to be able to actually accomplish the exact transformation that the actual car plane does. That's going to mean a much bigger engineering budget. So this would work as Silverbolt. Don't get me wrong. It's actually a perfect choice for Silverbolt. It's even got the right colors. I wouldn't have to Photoshop it. I just think, practicality, if this was going to be an actual Transformer toy, it might be a little bit out of Hasbro or Takara's range to do. I'd love to see it, though. I would love to see it. As far as what it would be, it seems like this strikes me from one of those continuities where the Autobots don't know how to make don't know how to fly or don't have flying alt modes. So this is their compensation for that. This is their alternative, which, you know what, I could actually see in some weird animated style universe. So yeah, I like this one. Good call. Good call, everyone who called this. My suggestion for Silverbolt was a Seaplane, which I at least thought got two different, it was at least a hybrid vehicle that seems like it would suit a beast mode. Now, if you really want to attach this to a Beast Wars character, Air Hammer seems absolutely perfect for this. But in Transformers, we have not actually seen an actual Seaplane. We've seen it in GoBots. We've actually seen it in GoBots, and that's actually a really good GoBot figure, if we're being honest here. This one, Yeah, again, I would probably call Autobot. It's a little bit too gentle of a vehicle to call a Decepticon, even though it's a flight mode thing. I almost get like, almost well the power. I'm getting Power Glide from the red in this one, but honestly, like, yeah, like this to me is like a female minibot waiting to happen, if that makes any kind of sense. But yeah, it would definitely be interesting. I'd love to see how the engineering figures out how to work in, like the big floats here on the side. Would those be arms? Would it be a jetpack? How would you work that in? That's a curiosity. Again, not something we actually have seen in Transformers before, nor have we seen this. So when Revenge of the Fallen did a biplane as a Transformer, I immediately thought to myself, wow, they could really get away with just about any vehicle, no matter how old-fashioned. So if Transformers had been just about every car you can imagine, why not the original car? Like, why not a Ford Model T? Engineering-wise, the open canopy there is going to be very difficult to work around, but we've done convertible Transformers. It's not impossible. And yeah, but beyond that, it's just like a big block with, a top on it. So it's absolutely doable, I feel. It's obviously an Autobot who would be like super old-timey, like older than Cup, like lost on Earth before the war even began levels of Cybertron old. Like this guy's been around 10 million years and he's just waiting for that first vehicle to pop up on Earth so he could get an alt mode. I could see that. I could absolutely see that. And again, it's a very specific license. Now, the reason why, like, if this one doesn't exist, it's probably because, one, kids probably don't know what a Model T is, and even if they did, it's not a cool-looking car. It wouldn't make for a cool-looking toy, even though it does have historical value and merit to it. I feel like a lot of vehicles on this list fall into that category of, collectors might be into it, but kids aren't going to care. It's just not a cool vehicle for kids. If we continue on that train of thought, so to speak, again, old-timey steam locomotive. I love how heavy of a machine this looks. We have Astro Train, who's a more modern shape and design on this, but for something like this, like Hearts of Steel style Bumblebee, we do not have anything like this in Transformers. I would love this. I think it's a super cool looking machine. I'm not like a train buff or anything. I just like a really heavy, cool looking machine. I think this is a really heavy, cool looking machine. Transformation wise, this would be a nightmare because between how large the wheels are and the smokestack and all, everything on top. This would be a mess to try and engineer, but it would be super cool if they could. I would love to see it if they could actually pull it off. Again, I hate to keep saying Autobot, but Astro Train's a Decepticon, but I get the feeling that's more because he's a space shuttle, more than anything. As far as like an actual like Autobot, like this would be like an Ironhide type, I feel like just like rough, rugged, and just been around a little bit too long. All right. Who else? What else have I lined up? I forget. Limo. Okay. All right. So again, we're facing a Transformer that probably doesn't exist because of engineering limitation. Not that there isn't enough space, but there's almost too much space. Like really, like what do you do with it when you've got this much vehicle to work with? The traditional stuff isn't going to apply. You try to make like this thing flip out the legs and the front end of the chest, you're going to end up with like some super long, like Slender Man looking Transformer. You'd have to come up with something entirely different in order to make this work as a figure of any kind. And you'd have to put it at a larger price point because, obviously it's got to be a lot bigger than your standard car. That's going to make it difficult pricing wise too. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are in the way of making a limo Transformer. Also, I feel like limos are just out of style these days. I don't see nearly as many of them as I did when I was a kid. And maybe that's because I live in just an area, well, I shouldn't say that. I live in Southwest Florida where like Naples is like huge money. So I should see limos all the time. But Yeah, like it's just not a car I see around. Like I feel like it's like a super rare occasion when I actually see a limo. So I feel like it's just not as cool as they used to be. You know, like if I see a limo these days, it's like a Hummer limo, and I think that would even be harder to try and replicate as something that could transform. You know what you do with this? You know what you do with this? You do like a reflector type. I feel like this would be like a 3-in-1 like transformer situation. That might be the only way it works. And then you could combine the front half and the back, like the front third and the back third, into one like normal size car. You know, you get like a normal looking car out of it, and the one guy just gets to stay behind. That could actually be the thing. I would actually make this a Decepticon based on that thought. The limo drives up, the middle guy transforms out, the other two recombine and drive off as just like a normal car, and that way you drop off your agent without arousing much suspicion. I think that'd be fun. That'd be a fun little gimmick. Okay, I've sold myself on how this would work now. I've sold myself on this one. I would get this. All right, what else? Oh yeah, smart car. I could see why. Again, this is not going to be popular with kids. I don't think it's going to be popular with collectors either. I mean, we're looking at something that has to exist in the core class, right? I always figured that if we do smart car for a transformer, it should never be something on its own. It should be something that is bundled in. If you want to do if you want to do like a really unusual sound wave, for instance, who turns into a van or like a carrier truck, like a not like a semi truck, but like just like one of those like a U-Haul size or shape kind of truck, and this could fit in the back, and like you make this rumble or frenzy. Like that's how I would work this. Or if you make an Optimus Prime toy and you want something in the back for Roller, I would make him this. So you have a little like scout vehicle, very small, very inconspicuous, and it makes a nice little simple like Minibot style transformer. That's where I'm going with it. It is ironic because it does look like the old G1 Bumblebee. Like I feel like if you want to do like a throwback Bumblebee that it looks like that squat and cartoony rounded Volkswagen Beetle his toy was, you make it one of these. Because then it just looks like normal proportions and it's still the right shape. So there's fun things you can do with it. There's options here. It's not the coolest vehicle, but you know what? There are things you could do that would make it fun. Well, speaking of this, we have to go completely opposite here. This is a Decotora, a decoration truck out of Japan. If you've never looked up Decotora, do yourself a favor, look it up sometime because it is trippy. Like semi-trucks are actually pretty rare in Japan, but collectors have bought them and decoed them out like this. Crazy lights, crazy amounts of what looks like shrapnel hanging off of them. It looks like they're preparing for Mad Max, but it's all just like super artistic and lovingly done, and just it's basically just how flashy can you make it. It's kind of out of style in Japan, but you still see them around once in a while, and it just looks fun. Like for me, this is a Motormaster style Decepticon, not part of a team or anything, but more like just like the bad boy Decepticon. Like he's not a good guy at all, but he doesn't really care about Megatron's orders or anything. He doesn't really care about the Decepticon cause. He's just a troublemaker. You know, he's just loud and obnoxious, which is kind of the personality of these vehicles. It would be fun. Hasbro would never do it, nor would Takara. Now, Takara would probably have an interest because it is like Japanese legacy, but you would never see it, if only because the deco on this thing would be way out of budget. Like, you might get away with this. You might have gotten away with this in like the early to mid 2000s when they just painted up however they wanted, especially on the Takara side of production. Nowadays, no, you wouldn't be able to get the deco amount budget that this would take, especially if we're doing like something cool along the side. Yeah, so this is basically way too flashy and painted to actually be able to make properly now. I would love for them to try, though. I think this is fun. Speaking of fun vehicles, so I've been kind of like batting the idea around, how do you actually make a monster truck transformer? I've talked about that on the channel before. Well, there's another type of monster truck out there that is super obscure, and it's very, very rare. There's only a few of them out there. So what you're looking at is Bigfoot Fast Tracks, which is literally what it sounds like. It's Caterpillar treads on essentially a van. And yeah, these used to be like special attraction things at monster truck rallies, things that would like run like between heats when the cars are refueling and like tuning up. They would run out special vehicles like these to kind of entertain the crowd in between rounds. So that's kind of where this thing exists. Not like a real competition vehicle, but just super unique and weird looking. It does kind of scream Decepticon, doesn't it? It kind of like... This screams like if Warpath was driven by a soccer mom. That's kind of the vibe here. But no, it's a mean looking vehicle. A really mean looking vehicle. This feels like a Decepticon who wants to blend in but doesn't want to give up his powerful appearance. So it's something that would not hide at all, but it does look menacing. And for some cons, that's really all it takes. All right, look at this thing. So this is a monster of a vehicle. This is basically a heavy tree cutter. And if you look up tree cutters, not only are they like horrifyingly strong machines, but like what they're doing is like ferocious, like chopping down and moving trees. Like it's usually like a claw and like a series of buzzsaws or what. There's even ones that strip the limbs off the log before they put it on a truck. What these machines do is incredibly impressive, engineering wise, visually, and also very frightening. I feel like a vehicle like this is going to be a DJD member in the making, which is this heavy rolling vehicle that can get over any terrain and like chase down and grab and instantly punish any fleeing Decepticon who does not follow Megatron's way. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting here. Now, that does put it in a very specific niche, unfortunately, but if there's a reason why it doesn't already exist, it's going to be because it's just such an obscure vehicle. It looks super cool, and it's super destructive looking, but it's not going to be a whole lot of kids who are going to be like, ooh, a tree cutter, So there's, this I think gets by on obscurity. But we're going to finish off with like the most obvious thing in the world. Okay, so if we're talking about very common vehicles that every kid knows, and again, shocks me, there is no such thing as a bus transformer, school bus, city bus, or otherwise. This thing doesn't exist, and for the life of me, this is the one where I cannot figure out why. Now, we do have price concerns here as well, because it'd have to be at least Voyager class, maybe even Leader class at this size. And again, you have engineering issues to account for, trying to get like a coherent and well-proportioned robot mode out of something that is this long. But when you have so much blocky space to work with, I don't think that's actually going to be an issue. Even less so than the Limo, because this thing is just one big block on 4 wheels. You've probably got enough space to actually make something work out of it. And it shouldn't be too hard to engineer. It's just a matter of like how to get it into something that makes sense, How do you have to make a character from the ground up to make this a leader class. It'd have to be leader class just to fit the size of the vehicle. Autobot, obviously. Unless this is a really cunning plan by Megatron to capture a whole bunch of kids, which, you know what? That's actually like a pretty thing. Like, imagine this being a Decepticon. Like, for kids who think that hate these things because it means they have to go to school. But like for me growing up, taking the school bus every day, the school bus was just kind of a chance to, sit with my neighbor friends on the bus and talk to them on the way to school. And like, because there were no teachers or no attendants or anything, it was like the last time we kind of got to disobey for the day before we had to go in. So it was like the school bus itself was fine. Like, it was actually a fun time on the school bus. And there's plenty There's plenty of examples of school bus toys out there, and entire franchises based on, we have the Magic School Bus, So it's something that has marketed well in the past. So I think you could get away with it now, but you'd have to start from the ground up with a completely new character. So that's going to be the tricky part. So that's my list so far. Now, obviously, if we get into makes, models, and specific equipment type, there are hundreds of vehicles out there that have never been Transformers. This is just a brief example of the ones I could think up and find that look like they would make really cool toys if there wasn't one or two things in the way. So feel free to leave them in the suggestions in the comments below. Remember, links get blocked on my YouTube channel, so just put up a title I can Google, a name of a vehicle I can Google, and maybe we'll do this again, and I might go the extra mile and maybe even draw up some concepts if I think the vehicle is cool enough. So, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.